Okay, lovely. Morning, folks. We're expecting perhaps possibly another sort of 10 more, but I think it probably makes sense to get started now. First of all, it's great to sort of to be able to interact with you. It's entirely up to you if you want to put your screens on or not. That's totally up to you. In terms of asking questions, very happy. We're happy just to sort of keep an eye on the screens of people waving their hands and then come in and speak. Conversely, if you want to send a message through on the chat system, entirely up to you. But as far as possible, I'd love it if we could do it as though we were in the Mem Hall, where rather than written questions, you can actually just come and speak any questions you've got, and then we can just engage. So first up, I just want to introduce the team I've got with me, although I hope and think you will know them all anyway. But across on my right is Tracy Mounter, who's obviously Pastoral Deputy. To my left, Duncan Gillies, obviously the Academic Deputy. And then you've also got, so S. Gwilliam, so Steve Gwilliam up there is obviously in charge of the co-curricular programme, and Ella Mallard as well, who's obviously head of sixth form. So that's us. I thought I'd just start with just a quick update on stuff which I think you may already know, but it's kind of a sort of where are we at the moment. So the first thing I wanted to do was just to say a massive thank you for all the support on getting the 2 tests done before we came back onto the school site. It did mean that we could open up the whole school fully from 8 o'clock on Monday morning. That's really assisted us in having a smooth start back into life here. So thank you massively for all the support that went into that one. It was a huge effort here, and the team who did it, frankly, just amazing. The children were brilliant too, the way they came on site really calmly, did the testing, and I hope that when they bring them home, they should be coming home with their home testing kits today. We've had them delivered just yesterday. It should help them with doing the testing at home as well. You may be interested to know that we've carried out well over 2,000 tests here on site. We've not had a single void test. We've not had a single positive test. So hopefully that also gives people some confidence, maybe some question marks about the tests. I was on a Zoom call with all the heads of HMC schools in the northeast of England. I think collectively we had 1 positive test between the entire HMC schools of the northeast, but what that tells us, I don't know. Obviously, we were anticipating, so having been keeping in touch with pupils before coming back. Most of them were just so keen to get back, it was untrue. Loads of them were keen to get back, but at the same time had almost become sort of quite agoraphobic from being away from school and in their bedrooms for so long, and so were apprehensive. So we sort of be looking out for that in advance when they came in and trying to make sure that we got all the support structures in place to help them to settle back in. But overwhelmingly, there's a fantastic buzz here at school. You know, the children are the high octane fuel that runs the place, and it's a heck of a lot more fun. It's a lot busier. We're sleeping very well at night, but it's a heck of a lot more fun having everybody here at school instead. You'll be aware, especially if you've got children in 5th form and upper 6th, that we were communicating the process for the awarding of grades for this summer, and we had some information sessions on Tuesday evening of this week, which I think and hope seem to have been quite helpful in terms of picking up any sort of process questions that people had and helping people to understand. And we're obviously managing to run at the moment the same full co-curricular programme that we were able to do in the Christmas term. So in essence, what we're doing at the moment is it's pretty much identical to the Christmas term. The one significant difference, of course, being the new government guideline about the wearing of masks indoors. And that's naturally, you can probably guess this, causing some difficulties for some of the pupils and also for some of the teachers, because in the classroom, some of the teachers are finding it quite difficult. You know, we're all learning quite how much we lip read, but also quite how much we pick up facial cues from people, from their whole face when we're teaching a group of people, working with a group of people. So that's proving to be something of a frustration for some of the teaching staff. And likewise, obviously for some of the pupils, especially when the weather's a bit rubbish earlier in the week, when they're back in the house rooms, for example, and they should still be wearing their masks in there. So that is causing some complications. We did notice it's the one thing the government said that they're definitely going to be reviewing at Easter. I think there's a sort of a direction of travel there. They perhaps suspected that this would cause difficulties, so they put that on their list for review. And then looking ahead to next term, if the roadmap is all falling into place, and I was hearing on Radio 4 this morning that even people as young as us are going to be in line for the vaccine before too long, then things are still looking reasonably good at present about the roadmap. Now, what that means to me is that I think it would feel really odd if we had exactly the same level of restrictions and bubbles as we have today on, say, the 20th of June, and then on the 21st of June, go back to everything completely as normal. So what I'm hoping to see is, as we go through next term, starting to adapt and change towards the ending of the whole thing. The first manifestation of that would probably come through in terms of increasing the number of bubbles that children are in. So I'm sure you know, but at the moment, they're largely speaking in their year group bubble, and if they're a boarder, they're in their house bubble and their year group bubble. And the way I would see that one coming through would be, for example, allowing more than one year group to be in a bubble for music, for sport, for drama, and all the various other co-curricular activities. So that's what I'm hoping to be able to see as we start to shift out. We also, it's quite a nice coincidence, the 21st of June is the last 3 weeks of term. So we're also at the moment making plans and looking ahead on the assumption that we're able to do things. So I was in touch with the Dean more than last week, 2 weeks ago now, about having Commem in the Minster, and he's really warm and open to that, and obviously under whatever guidelines the Minster's working under. But if the Minster provides a problem, we've obviously got big spaces here at school in the Mem Hall and in the chapel, and obviously the outdoors as well. So we're already looking ahead and thinking about the events for the end of the term, and hopefully that it will be something of a gathering of the whole community together with some celebrations. So now, some of what I've just sort of covered may want to have some questions on that as well. But from there, what I'd like to do is just to open it up, as always, completely to you. Please just sort of stick your hand up if you want to do that, so physically or with a little symbol, or come in on chat and just let us know. So, any questions?
Morning, Headmaster.
Hi, Nigel.
Hi. Firstly, thanks for everything you've done so far in getting us to this stage. I'm hugely appreciative of that. I did submit a question. I know at the moment you're kind of dealing with what's immediately in front of you. I wonder what you feel will be the bigger effect on the pupils next year, and then really drilling down into that, what might happen with public exams next year.
Yeah, thank you. So as best as we can tell, academically, so picking up on the fourth form and the lower sixth form in particular, but also the third form, they seem to have kept pace effectively during the whole lockdown experience. I think there's going to be sort of a long COVID effect in the sense of some of the impact of anxieties and separation and those sorts of things. I think that is going to take some time to work through. And so thinking ahead to next year, I don't think it's as simple as we're all back, yippee type thing. So pastorally, I think there's going to be sort of some ongoing work that's going to carry on. We have noticed it's a national picture of a rise of mental health issues, and we've noticed very similar things here at school, unsurprisingly. So I think in terms of sort of pupils' well-being and mental health, I think there's going to be an ongoing process of that as we go through. Academically, there's sort of whispers around, if that makes sense. I mean, I have to say, I've not been massively impressed by the Department for Education, of course, forward planning for this summer's exam series. So it's maybe no surprise that we're not getting anything clear about next year either. But the whispers I've been seeing, I'll pass to Duncan in a tick, has been talking about potentially a reduction of content in exams for next year, or potentially sort of more of a progressive way of assessing them than simply sort of terminal end of year exams as well. So, but Duncan, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, as Headmaster said, it isn't clear what is going to be happening, but I think there's a couple of things which I think will be taken into account as the government moves forward. And the first thing is that nationally, those pupils who are in fourth form, the equivalent of fourth form or lower sixth, have had their exam 2-year preparation limited to considerably varying degrees. So I think there'll be some shift, and the most likely one is around content. That said, in terms of our pupils, I think nearly all departments have said they're at exactly where they would have been in terms of preparation. Some are actually slightly ahead, but there are individual pupils who've had some slightly greater difficulties. And as we see these things move forward, we'll help those ones there. But I think that although nationally we may be behind, I think we are sort of more ahead as a school than others. So it's very much a wait and see. I'm very aware that the lower sixths in particular have not had experience of a real exam. They didn't have their GCSE exams last year. They had their GCSE trials. So one of the things we need to do is make sure that when they, let's say they do come to real exams at the end of next year, that they have the experience, so that when they go into the exam hall, they're confident, because they just haven't had that experience, both at the exam hall, but also that preparation. I mean, the GCSE things are a really tough thing, and they didn't have it in the way that every other year. So that is something we need to think about and help the current lower six through and the fourth one as well.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'd like to do that. I'd like to just pass over to Tracy just to talk about the pastoral side. And then it would actually be really interesting and helpful to hear any perspectives that you've got in terms of your thoughts about where you think your children are, or other people's children that you're aware of, in terms of how you think that they might be going through next year as well. That would be very helpful for us. But Tracy, would you want to pick up on some of the pastoral?
Hi, good morning. Just to say that we've been working really hard with the recovery curriculum. Lessons for Life is taught through every year group, third form to fifth form, and we've been looking altering the topics, obviously, to then focus on the key issues around mental health and well-being. We've also got a great support team, so we've got a mental health nurse, listening space, tutors, obviously, and house parents are all working really hard to make sure that there isn't a pupil that slips through the nets, and making sure that we're clear on pupils that are struggling with anxiety on the return to school. So that's all going on in the background as we welcome the pupils from Monday of this week.
So any thoughts from home then, in terms of how you're finding things, or reflections?
If I may.
Yep, thanks, Alex.
Hi, my name's John Williams. I'm Alex Williams' father. He's in Linden House this year. Just like to say, not really a question, just a big thank you to the whole school. He's been there less than a year now, started in September, and frankly, what we've seen from the school has been fantastic. The support's been great, and all the environment that's been put in place to keep the children safe and secure there has been fantastic. Me and his mum are out in Saudi Arabia at the moment, so we can't actually be there very often to see how he's settling in, but he's said nothing but great things about the teachers, about Linton House, and about the school. So 2 thumbs up. You've done an excellent job this year. It's not been the easiest of circumstances for any of us, but keep up the good work for next year.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I'll probably come back at the end to sort of vote of thanks actually to the parents as well, because it's I mean, I'm very fortunate that the team is really strong at school, and I mean that right the way through to the people who cook the food and clean the place as well. So we are very blessed. But I think it's been really fascinating for for new people to the school this year, sort of trying to settle into a place when they would normally be in sort of. Obviously, as a boarder, he's in the normal house setting, as it were. But it has, I think for the new pupils in particular, it's been very, very challenging. I mean, one of our priorities is, as we look into next autumn term, as it were, the Christmas term, is trying to get back to, and obviously an improved version, but trying to get back to the school that we know and love. Because I think, we've worked desperately hard to replicate as much as we possibly can all the way through since last March. But there are things like, fixtures and parents being around for stuff happening at school, and concerts the way we like to have them, the public lecture series. There's all these massive range of things that really characterise what makes Peters when we're back in. So one of our sort of priorities is not just to go, oh, thank goodness, we're out and we're done type thing, but actually to consciously reflect on, so what was it, that we were doing. Well, it's going to be almost 18 months ago by the time we hit the autumn term as well, and getting back into that space that we all know and love as well. So, right, I hope that was helpful on those sort of matters.
Just scan to the right in case there's another. Just looking.
And there's just one screen to the right, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see any hands up. Does nobody want to give me a hard time about masks? Joking aside, it's fascinating, because what we've got is a real mixture of, as with society, some people who feel that the whole thing's over the top and it's draconian, but are happy to go along with it because it's, we're so used to shrugging our shoulders and saying "'tis what it is" type thing. We've also got some pupils and some colleagues who are really anxious about it, and it's almost the message that if we need to wear masks and we didn't in the Christmas term, surely that must mean that the place is more dangerous, in inverted commas, than it was, and it isn't. It's a massively safe place. So we've been sort of managing those who are just willing to just get on with it, but bluntly, you know, teenagers are teenagers, and if you wander around the house rooms, it's not a surprise to wander into a room and see some of them have got the mask down on the chin type thing, and had to be asked to pop it back up. And then we've also got those who are so very anxious about it. So I feel for them, because obviously, you know, being teenagers as well, we're expecting to sort of see a little bit outbreak of acne around the nose and chin by the time we get to the end of term as well. So poor things as they go through adolescence. So that's, yeah, this much I know on masks.
Headmaster, I was just going to say, I think there's probably some positive things to have come out of this as well, you know, in terms of our IT proficiency, and I thought the parents' evening was brilliant. If we can carry on doing the parents' evening in that way, it was absolutely fantastic. So maybe there are some good lessons to come out of this as well.
What I'll do is I think I'll sort of ping around a bit to others in terms of the things we'll take forward, but the tech in general. If I start off with things like interaction with parents, I mean, obviously, you know, we've obviously got somebody coming in from the Middle East, which is amazing, would normally never happen. I remember in my first year here, my head boy, Pierre, his parents were running hotels out in the Middle East. And I remember him saying once, Duncan was doing his, said, do you think it would ever be possible to video live stream this stuff? And, you know, I thought, yeah, I'm sure it must be. But at the same time, it seemed like, wow, crazy hoverboard territory type thing. And so things like that. So things like, I mean, this is being recorded as well. We recorded the information sessions that we did for parents of 5th and upper 6th on Tuesday. So that way of keeping people involved and engaged. I'm sort of wondering whether, I mean, parents' evenings, they do seem to have gone down very well. I think for some parents, I don't know whether it's the Fentimans and the Christian thing, but some people value the human interaction. Other people, I think, the notion of having to get home from work early to then drive into school, you know, on a cold, damp December evening versus just being at home, I think it's really appealing to a lot of people. So I'm sort of wondering whether some events might end up being a bit of a hybrid. So I can sort of imagine an event like this having, you know, taking place in the Mem Hall, so we can still do coffee and croissants and things and sort of chat to people in person, but then also having video screens and doing a blended version as well. And I think that might be quite an appeal. So, but I'm going to ping to Duncan in terms of sort of taking forward some of the tech stuff as well.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that Nigel brought up about what is good about the parents' evenings is actually the calmness and the ability just to be able to say, to have that conversation without, not so much with people eardropping, but it is a noisy environment, and you know, there's no way around it when you've got 100 sets of parents and so forth. So those sorts of things there. I think also just in terms of, you know, where we would go in terms of teaching and learning, I think there's some interesting things there. There's some things which have worked really well in terms of the pupils' use of IT. Some of them, but not all of them, translate back into the classroom. So I think that's certainly an area, a scope there. But also, I think it's also reinforced the bits which have to be done and should be done face to face. What I also notice is how much more comfortable adults and children are on screen. I mean, we've done a number of interviews for jobs on screen, and actually over the last year, people are much more relaxed on that, and I think pupils are now much more relaxed on screen, and that is likely to be one of the ways in which communication is going to happen. And the fact that that is something which now learning to do, to conduct themselves in a good, in an appropriate, situation appropriate way on screen is a great benefit to it. So I think this cohort of people, this group of people, this group of teenagers, when they look back in 10 years' time, will say, look back on the sort of things they learned how to do, both in tech, but also just in terms of resilience and adapting. They and us have had to learn new things really quickly, and that is going to stand them in great stead as they move forward, in the way that the slightly older generations, the slightly younger generations might not have had that benefit. So there's a benefit to all these down things.
I'm going to bring Tracy in just a moment, then I was going to pass to Ella, because of course, for the first time, we've had something of a sixth form sort of centre type approach with the combination of the Pascal building, and so Ella, perhaps we're coming on sixth form. I mean, something the interviewing stuff I found really, really valuable, actually, because what it's encouraged us to do has been to have a lot more what you might call pre-chats with people. So you just so rather than waiting for people to come on site and then you put them through lots of rounds of interviews and different scenarios and things, we've actually had the heads of department just having conversations with them a bit in advance, and we found that's actually, oddly, although we haven't seen all of them in person, it's really helped the interview process for new colleagues. Prospective pupils and families for a long time now, but it's made us in a good way really up our game on things like so we've recorded video tours of the school, for example, which we hadn't sort of had before, because we understand we had such an emphasis on come and meet us and come on site. So on that sort of outward facing bit, so we're really sort of sorting out, I don't know your thoughts, pages on it or something, and lots of sort of little rabbit holes you can go down, and apparently the optimum is sort of 45 pages or something. So we're doing a revamp of how we sort of present ourselves and communicate outwards as well. I'll pass over to Tracy now for some stuff on pastoral, and then to Ella for stuff on sixth form, and then Steve, would you like to come in on co-curricular and any of these matters? Okay, fantastic. So Tracy first then.
Definitely the new technology has enhanced pastoral care, and Teams has been fantastic just to get hold of pupils. So to arrange meetings, pupils, check their Teams, you can see when they've read the message, you can ask them about work, they can ask you. So Teams has definitely been a fantastic arranging meetings, and also just teachers communicating about pastoral care of pupils. It's definitely more effective over Teams. You can set up groups rather than email. So I'm definitely in favour of the team.
Thank you. And one of the things that I think we already knew this, but it's fascinating. Teenagers in the main don't read email. I think they see email as being how we would regard sort of snail mail from a few years back. But they will pick up Teams messages very quickly indeed. It seems to fit in more to how they live their lives. Ella, over to you for some stuff on sixth form.
Morning. Yeah, we use IT quite a lot with the sixth form, because they currently are doing a STEP programme in the lower six, so that's their St Peter's enrichment programme. And because it started, the lower six programme, in lockdown, we have a company doing them study skills. So Duncan was talking earlier about the lower six missing out on some of these skills. And so the lower six are currently doing a course on study skills in preparation for their exams to come up, but also all the things that they would have missed in terms of revising and how to revise successfully. So they're currently doing that. And so we have the programme still as an online programme. So they'll go into their classrooms with their teacher, but it's being broadcast as still an online programme. So it has its issues, but also it's got this lovely environment where they're all together. And we've worked out that actually they've really relished the fact that they can all be one group. It's felt very much like a sixth form centre. It's had its real positives with that. Similarly, the use of Pascal workroom for the lower six to study, and then the library for the upper six to study, has meant that the lower six have approached silence. They have laptops, they have an environment where they're just there on their own working, with me nearby, but they just get on. And I think that's been a real benefit to this sort of sense of independence that I wanted the sixth form to kind of cherish and to nourish that.
Thank you. Steve, over to you.
Perspective, I think the thing that's really come through is just how much the pupils really enjoy that side of school, and we've obviously worked very hard at trying to keep as full a programme as possible within the confines of year group bubbles. So, for example, Saturday afternoon, we have 46 separate activities running. There is a third form running club, a fourth form running club, a fifth form running club, and so on. You're having to replicate what used to be one club 5 times to keep your bubbles. And I know, just seeing them come back on site on Monday, and I was supervising some badminton. Just seeing those smiling faces was just wonderful, and it's kind of reinforced that, and obviously that's something we'll look to develop as we go forwards. I think the other thing we say in terms of sort of learning about things going forward, obviously we had a huge number of trips due to go out in Easter of 2020, some in the summer, some into October, and I think it would be fair to say that trying to get money back from those trips was a huge challenge. for the school, but not, you know, dealing with different tour companies. So we've learned an awful amount about what kinds of companies you want to deal with going forwards, and various contractual matters which we'll be putting into place as we start to relaunch things. And what I'm working on at the moment with colleagues is a plan for residential trips, both in the UK and overseas going forwards, and then hopefully to get to parents early on in the summer term, an outline of what things hopefully will look like for the year going forward. The different, you know, one of the challenges is going to be that, you know, there's a lot of demand pent up there, both in terms of the market itself as well as lots of trips that have been cancelled, and can we now run those? So we're going to have to schedule these as carefully as we can, but there's bound to be some overlaps and clashes. But again, the desire to do that is very, very strong. So we're working in the background on all of that, and you will see something on that just after Easter.
Lovely. Thank you, Steve. I just thought it might be useful just to give you a bit of an update on sort of IT and some other pastoral stuff as well, because a couple of things that we've been working on, and this is before COVID started, but we've carried on with it. So IT was linked. So what's been happening over the course of the last year and a bit has been, I mean, one of the things we did was a complete audit review of the whole IT structure, the networks and the staffing structures, and seeing how that was various upgrades that we need to get done, and making sure the Wi-Fi is stable across the entire site. Obviously, quite a spread out site and quite a number of users at any one time. So it's been, obviously, as Duncan was outlining, looking at sort of how tech should always, I mean, I like the phrase, it should augment teaching and learning. So the notion of sort of, you know, you will completely replace everything with AI, for example, and you'll never touch on working lives. And so use of tech to augment. And the other thing on the kit side has also been, we had to make sure that colleagues, obviously, not just like learning how to use platforms like Teams and stuff like that, and Google Classrooms and Google Hangout, but actually did they have the appropriate kit themselves? And so that's meant that we sort of really had to push forward. And just literally about a month before lockdown started, back in last March, I was down in London at Apple headquarters, and they were doing sort of an information session for heads. And part of that was obviously to do with teaching and learning, but another part of it was actually to do with kit. And so we've done a beauty parade in the last 3 months with a number of providers of you know, and you guys will be a million miles ahead of us on this one. So sorry for, as ever with schools, coming late to this sort of thing. But in terms of working with providers, so leasing kit, which doesn't necessarily have to be iPads, although there's obviously some massive advantages to iPads in terms of how you use them for flow and for writing on things and that sort of stuff. So every sort of area you sort of think about with IT, I think we're pretty much got the bits in place. The last bit is, because in 2 to 8 they make great use of tech in teaching and learning. At 8 to 13, they likewise, but they've also got a really good scheme of work that goes all the way through that school. And then there's been statement as they come up into third form at 13 to 18. So we were just, I mean, just yesterday we were doing interviews for a founding head of computer science, and you know, we will only make an appointment if we believe we got the absolutely the right person. But we have had, because obviously it had to go into the options for the third form going into GCSEs, and it's actually been the fifth largest take-up subject for the optional subjects, with 32 people saying that they'd like to do it. So there's a bit of a proof of concept in there as well on the IT. The other thing, Tracy, on this one as well, was one of the other areas that we felt we really need to improve on. I mean, Ella's talked a bit about what I call up and out stuff, which is, you know, making sure that the sixth form are world ready in all the different ways. But we also felt that we needed to really up our game on tutoring as well, because the way things were working, we had one tutoring session of about 15 minutes per week, in a tutor group being on a 1 to 15 to 17 ratio, and also trying to time frame it. It just wasn't working. And one of the things that we're really interested in, obviously, is just the whole personal development of a child, which is why I bang on about qualifications, skills, interests and values as being the building blocks that really sort of make, you know, and you'll have heard me say this before, but you know, our job is to produce amazing adults, not 18-year-olds, and so it's reverse engineering what you need to be a phenomenal adult and all those areas. And so tutoring fits in really centrally. It's the glue, the gum that pulls all that together. linked into that, we've got very interested, I've certainly been very interested for a time now, in the World Economic Forum's Future Jobs Report and the trending skills that they refer to. So there's about a dozen of them, and I'm sure many of you will know this anyway, but they're things like, yes, there is tech in there, but mainly they're what we would call the really important soft skills. So they're things like social leadership, complex problem solving, and those sorts of areas. And so when we sort of looked at the school and thought, well, what makes the place fantastic? It was actually, well, the whole array of everything they do at school is by osmosis developing those skills, which is a brilliant starting point to come from. But some of the starting point for the tutoring and some of the lessons for life stuff was to ask ourselves, well, what happens if you try and do that in a mindful, conscious way of doing it, rather than letting it happen as a consequence of just having a brilliant time at school, which is obviously, frankly, the main aim of things, is to have a fantastic fun years as a teenager whilst doing great stuff. So when we sort of looked at the tutoring, what we've done is we've now, and we haven't been able to do this fully in the bubble group, so this will be starting properly in September. But the way we've done it is to try and reduce the ratios. So third form we're keeping as a year group tutor group in the houses, because we want them to sort of settle and mingle. But what we've done is, rather than having one tutor group of fourth form and one of fifth form, and then the same again for lower sixth and upper sixth, is to say, right, let's combine fourth and fifth, and then separately lower sixth and upper sixth, and put them into 3 tutor groups. And so that gets us down to about a 1:10, 1:12 ratio of tutor to tutee immediately. It also provides opportunity for a bit of peer mentoring, and for the fifth, the second year GCSE, second year A-level students to be able to give some guidance and advice to the first years as they're coming through it. And we've also managed to allocate 2 sessions of tutoring each week, one being about 25 minutes long, 25 minutes long, the other one being about 35 minutes long, to allow more time for it. And then using the Davos skills list, as I sometimes call it, as a structure for thinking of one-to-one stuff with tutors and tutees, as well as group work, getting them to reflect on how is my personal development going in these skills areas? What am I doing now that I could do more of to foster that? And what am I not doing that I could be doing? And I think that's something that I was getting really quite excited about, looking forward to bringing in this September, as in last September, but then sort of bringing that back in fully on tap from the coming September, because I think that to me is taking some of the actual essence of what makes Peters such a fantastic place and trying to make a sort of a multiplier effect, trying to make it really sort of planned and happening. And then the only key to it, to my point of view, is getting to like the Goldilocks bell curve thing of neither, as I said earlier on, just that it happens almost by accident and therefore may not happen fully for all people, nor taking it to the other end where you systematize the hell out of something. Scaffolding is ugly and should be hidden type thing. And if you do that, I think you take the joy out of being a teenager and just the fun of just doing things because it's great and for the fun of doing things. So that's the balance we're trying to get, is trying to get in that creative space of concentrating on it mindfully, but at the same time still focusing on, frankly, just crack on and have a brilliant time when you're going through your teenage years at school as well. So there's a little update. I don't know, Tracy, whether you wanted to.
I was just going to add, just to re-emphasise about the lessons for life. So that is PSHE, and that is a timetable period every week for third form, fourth and fifth, and then obviously becomes a step programme in the sixth form. And that's covering life skills, as we said, on important topics and issues that pupils need to discuss and be aware of and be able to ask questions. So that was new from September last year. And again, we've altered, as I said, we've altered the topics that we taught in remote learning, just obviously because most of it's discussion based. And as you know from Zoom, so that can be quite difficult when you're talking about topics with young people. So we've altered it. So we're looking at the recovery curriculum to make sure that everything is covered as the pupils return to school.
And also it means that the lessons for life stuff is now being taught by teachers who have said they would like to teach it. Whereas, I think I don't know what your recollections are of put like the birds and the bees chat when you were going through school. And sometimes, your form tutor is not necessarily the person who feels most comfortable themselves having some of those conversations, and that you may not also feel completely comfortable with them as well. I was looking at I got sent a video on WhatsApp to a bunch of my university friends. So we've all got sort of children roughly the same age. And the basic premise of the video is quite amusing. Is it's a parent trying to have the dad chat with their child, and the child actually knows so much more than them. Is throwing in all sorts of stuff to do with what do you mean by gender, what do you mean by sex and things, and the poor parent just floundering completely in the face of the teenager. So that's some of the intent as well, is to just recognise that it is a more complex world for them, and so trying to make sure that they're actually being taught by the best people to do the task as well. So, right, would like to, or topics? Yes, John.
Just one other one. Ms. Walker, a few minutes ago you mentioned the audit of the IT estate within the school. The one issue Alex has noticed at Linton House is the Wi-Fi there is very sketchy at times, especially with all the obviously with all the Zoom calls and everything they're doing. Do you have a time frame for when the infrastructure is going to be improved, or obviously these things don't happen overnight? Just wondering if there's allowances being made.
Yeah, so right, I've got enough knowledge on IT to be dangerous, so I'll do my best. So basically, one of the problems that we had was that we had effectively one tube for the internet coming in and out of the school. And we didn't have a sort of a separate backup server either. So some of the stuff that's been happening with the network has been trying to make sure that we've got some separated server stuff going on, and that we're constantly running a double channel of internet access with a third running as a backup as well. So that should be that element of doing things. One of the things I never quite understand, because I thought it was all about fibre optics and stuff like that, but why is it that the further you are from the server, a bit like, you know, the pressure in a water tap type thing, and Linton, of course, is down, you know, literally behind me, so at one of the furthest points. So and I do know that something that they've been doing back end of, well, no, sorry, gosh, it's just so what it feels like when I say this term, almost like Monday marked the start of another new term inside a term. So what was happening earlier this term was they were going around doing a lot of diagnostics and testing and trying to push it through. So I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't have a direct time frame for it, beyond simply saying that I do know that it's so important. And yeah, I mean, even sitting in my study, sometimes, you know, I double click on an email to pop up or something, and maybe I'm just impatient, or maybe I get 50 beats a second next door at home on my home Wi-Fi. So I've got very used to being spoiled by things just ping, ping, ping. And so, yes, I think we have got some way to go, but it's definitely on the agenda. I'm sorry if that sounded like a bit of a politician's answer at the end there.
All right, it's understandable. Thanks for the answer.
Okay. Right. Well, I hope it's been helpful, and as I say, if you do have any other questions, you know, I mean, do jump in now if you'd like to, or obviously, as always with Peter's, just keep in touch as you always do. I just want to actually end with a thanks to you, the parents, because one of the things that's really helped us all the way through, the quality and level of support and visible support from parents has just been amazing. You know, we have been working really hard, and when you know, you get a lot of what I call COVID conundrums, which is basically what I mean by, oh my Lord, there is no elegant solution to this one. You've got a lot of hippos in tutus solutions sometimes when you're just trying to do the best you can with the hand you've been dealt. But having sort of contact from parents, and parents proactively taking the opportunity to send messages in to individual teachers or collectively, and coming through me and things, that really for us has really buoyed us up all the way through it. In my assembly video, so if I tell you now, you don't have to bother watching it. One of the things that I talked about was that we're now in a sort of a hill walking stage of the process, by which I mean, when you're out walking in the hills, you oftentimes, you just stare at the ground about 5 meters ahead of you and just keep going. And then occasionally you glance upwards to the top of the hill, to the goal and the thing. And it sort of now feels a bit like that. Whereas back in the Christmas term, it felt very much like we're just working on it. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. So just, you know, keep your shoulders up, chin up, keep going. And now we're almost in that hill walking phase where, you know, we can look forward with some reasonable confidence to June the 21st. And for us, the last 3 weeks of term. And then there's also that element of, with things like the awarding of grades, settling them back in, mental health issues, checking where they are academically, getting the co-curricular pushing forwards and back. That there's also quite a lot of sort of 5 meters ahead and then horizon. And that's very much how we feel we are at the moment. But the closing I really want to say was, in the context of all of that, just a massive thank you to you as the parents, because, you know, with some of you, I do know some of the challenges that you're facing in your personal and professional lives, but many of you I won't do, of course, but I can only surmise that, you know, that you are facing over the course of the last year the most enormous upheaval and challenges and pressures that are on you. And then at the same time, you're also doing your best to look after your children and support them, and then giving your support to the school as well. So really, in closing, from us here at school to you, it's just a massive well done and thank you, because I think as a body of parents, I think you've done collectively a blistering job, and we can only look after the children in tandem with what's happening at home. So final message from us is just a huge thank you back to all of you, and yeah, and hopefully hopefully, as Dayut says, you know, see you all IRL before the end of the summer term, and hopefully before. That's my woeful attempt to appear youthful, but there we go. All right. Well, look, thanks so much, everybody. It's been really great having the chance to interact. Hope you have a great weekend, and yeah, best wishes from all of us here.